Admiral Elena Santos stood at the viewport of the Terran space station Artemis, her weathered face reflecting off the reinforced glass as she watched the seemingly primitive satellites drift by. Earth's orbital space looked like a museum of early space-age technology, a carefully crafted deception maintained for centuries. The real Earth defense systems remained invisible, hidden in quantum space. Admiral, Lieutenant Chen's voice came through her neural link. We have multiple unknown vessels approaching from the Kuiper Belt. They're not trying to hide. Santos smiled slightly. After 300 years of waiting, humanity would finally meet its galactic neighbors. They had known about the other civilizations for decades, quietly observing, learning, and preparing. Their probes and stealth ships had mapped significant portions of the galaxy while maintaining Earth's apparent isolation. "Show me," she commanded. The viewport transformed into a tactical display, revealing a fleet of crystalline ships, their designs both beautiful and alien. At their head, a massive vessel nearly twice the size of the others pulsed with purple energy. The alien transmission came on all frequencies, broadcasting in multiple languages until it found Earth's primary communications protocols. "Attention, primitive world. This is High Commander Vextol of the Valdorian Empire. Your world has been discovered by our superior civilization. Prepare for integration into our empire or face immediate subjugation." Santos exchanged glances with her staff. The Valdorians were exactly as their intelligence had suggested. Arrogant, expansionist, and quick to underestimate others. They had conquered hundreds of worlds this way, always targeting those they deemed technologically inferior. "This is Admiral Elena Santos of Earth. We acknowledge your presence, High Commander. However, we must decline your offer of integration. We prefer to maintain our independence." A harsh laugh came through the channel. "Your preference is irrelevant. Our scans show your civilization barely has achieved basic spaceflight. Your orbital defenses are laughable. Surrender now, and we will be merciful." Santos leaned forward, her voice taking on an edge that had made veteran soldiers tremble. "High Commander, let me be clear. We are warning you to leave this system. What you see is not what you get. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if forced. You dare threaten the Valdorian Empire." Vextol's voice dripped with contempt. "Your primitive weapons cannot hope to match our technology. We have conquered worlds far more advanced than yours." Santos sighed, genuinely disappointed. This was why humanity had hidden their true capabilities. Species like the Valdorians, drunk on their own power, would never believe that a seemingly primitive world could pose a threat until it was too late. "Lieutenant Chen, log this conversation. Make sure it's clear we gave them a chance to withdraw peacefully." Santos straightened her uniform and informed Defense Command that Protocol Omega is now in effect. Throughout the solar system, hidden quantum transmitters activated, sending signals to Earth's real defense fleet. Ships that made the Valdorian vessels look like ancient sailing ships in comparison, but they remained cloaked, invisible to the Empire's sensors. Humanity would wait, letting the Valdorians make the first aggressive move. They had spent centuries preparing for this moment, developing technologies that operated on principles the Empire couldn't even comprehend. On his flagship, Vextol was already planning the conquest of Earth. His tactical officers plotted firing solutions while his ground forces prepared for invasion. The Empire's sensors showed nothing but primitive satellites and a few small space stations. This would be the easiest conquest in decades. He had no way of knowing that every piece of space debris his ships passed was a sophisticated sensor array, mapping his fleet's weaknesses. Every ancient satellite his tactical officers dismissed was a quantum-linked weapons platform capable of tearing his ships apart. The humans had learned long ago that the best defense was to appear defenseless, right until the moment you weren't. As the Valdorian fleet moved into attack position, Santos opened a channel one last time. "High Commander, this is your final warning. Leave now or face the consequences of your choice." "Your warnings mean nothing," Vextol responded. Prepare to witness the power of a true spacefaring civilization. Santos closed her eyes briefly. Very well. Remember, we tried to warn you. She switched to her command channel. All forces, hold position. Let them fire first. Then show them exactly why humanity has remained hidden for so long. The first shots from the Valdorian fleet were moments away. They would learn, as Santos' grandfather had told her years ago, that humanity's greatest strength was letting others underestimate them. The real war was about to begin, and the Valdorian Empire had no idea what they had just unleashed. High Commander Vextal watched with satisfaction as the first wave of plasma torpedoes streaked toward Earth's orbital stations. His tactical display showed no meaningful defensive measures, just those primitive satellites and scattered debris. This would be over quickly. The torpedoes never reached their targets. Impossible, his weapons officer shouted. The plasma torpedoes had simply vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed. They ceased to exist the moment they crossed an invisible boundary around Earth. Before Vextal could process this development, Lieutenant Chen's voice echoed across all Valdorian communication channels. You fired first. Permission to reveal our true capabilities granted. The space around the Valdorian fleet transformed. What they had dismissed as debris shifted and changed, quantum fields dropping to reveal sleek, obsidian vessels that made their own ships look crude by comparison. The primitive satellites unfolded into weapon platforms that defied conventional physics. All ships, evasive action. Vextal screamed, but it was too late. From her command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Santos watched the battle unfold. Show them what we can do, but remember, minimal casualties. We want survivors to spread the word. The first shot from a human vessel struck a Valdorian cruiser. Instead of conventional weapons, a beam of concentrated quantum probability collapsed the ship's structural integrity field, causing it to fold in on itself like paper. The crew, however, found themselves safely teleported into containment fields aboard human vessels. What sorcery is this? Vextal demanded, watching his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled. Their shields, the pride of Valdorian technology, proved useless against weapons that ignored conventional physics entirely. This isn't sorcery, High Commander, Santos responded calmly. This is what happens when a civilization spends centuries preparing while letting others underestimate them. Your sensors can't detect our weapons because they operate on principles your science hasn't discovered yet. The battle continued, but it wasn't really a battle. It was a demonstration. Human ships phased through solid matter, appeared inside Valdorian shields, and disabled massive warships without destroying them. Each display of technology was more impossible than the last. In orbit around Mars, massive doors opened in what had appeared to be natural craters, revealing shipyards that dwarfed anything in the Valdorian Empire. From Jupiter's clouds emerged energy collectors that powered weapons capable of reshaping reality itself. Lieutenant Chen, Santos ordered, show them the Sol Gate. Near Pluto, space itself split open, revealing humanity's greatest achievement, a controlled wormhole that led to thousands of other star systems. Through it came more ships, each displaying technology that made the Empire's finest vessels look obsolete. Vextal stood frozen on his bridge, watching his mighty fleet reduced to floating hulks, his crews captured with ease. How? He whispered. How did we not know? Because we didn't want you to know, Santos replied. Earth isn't some primitive world waiting to be conquered, High Commander. We're the civilization that chose to wait, to watch, to learn. While you conquered those who couldn't fight back, we prepared for those who wouldn't listen to warnings. The quantum displays showed the battle was effectively over. 300 Valdorian ships disabled, their crews captured, all without a single death. It had taken less than 10 minutes. Your crew will be treated well, Santos continued. They'll be free to return to your empire with a message. Earth is not to be trifled with. We could have destroyed your ships and killed your people, but that's not our way. Consider this a lesson in humility. Throughout the solar system, human ships began appearing, dropping their quantum camouflage. Ships hidden in asteroid fields, inside gas giants, even phased into other dimensions. Humanity's true fleet numbered in the thousands. One more thing, Santos added, her voice carrying a note of warning. We've had stealth ships observing your empire for decades. We know about the other species you've conquered, the worlds you've subjugated. That ends now. Vextol slumped in his command chair as transport beams began removing his crew. His mighty empire, which had seemed invincible mere hours ago, had just been humbled by a world they had dismissed as primitive. In her command center, Santos turned to Lieutenant Chen. Send word to all hidden fleets throughout Valdorian space. Phase 2 begins now. It's time to help those worlds they conquered regain their freedom. The real war was just beginning, but its outcome was already certain. Humanity had spent centuries preparing not just for their own defense, but for the liberation of an entire galaxy. The Valdorian Empire was about to learn why appearances could be deceiving, and why some warnings should never be ignored. The Imperial Palace on Valdor Prime shook as Emperor Xenfold received the reports from Earth. His crystalline throne, normally gleaming with the collected light of 1,000 stars, seemed dim in the face of such devastating news. Impossible, he hissed, his scaled skin shifting from royal purple to ash gray. How could our finest fleet be defeated so easily? The answer came in the form of a transmission that bypassed all of their security protocols. Admiral Santos's hologram appeared in the center of the throne room, her presence as calm and resolute as ever. Emperor Xenfold, she began, by now you've received word of your fleet's defeat. What you don't know is that was just the beginning. While your empire focused on conquest, humanity prepared for liberation. Throughout Valdorian space, reality seemed to shift. On 100 conquered worlds, quantum fields dropped to reveal human ships that had been hiding for years. Massive vessels emerged from gas giants, asteroid fields, and even the coronas of stars. Places the Valdorians had deemed impossible to survive in. All strike teams, execute Operation Avalanche, Santos commanded. On the subjugated world of Proxima III, the Valdorian garrison watched in horror as their supposedly impregnable orbital defense platforms simply vanished, transported into quantum storage by human ships. The enslaved Proximans, a species of silicon-based life forms, rose up as human forces provided them with weapons that could bypass Valdorian shields. Similar scenes played out across the Empire. On Rigel Beta, the aquatic Mirians burst from their enforced underwater colonies, aided by human vessels that could operate equally well in space or ocean depths. The Valdorian governors found their technology useless against quantum-phased weapons and probability drives. Your empire was built on the subjugation of those you deemed weaker, Santos continued, addressing the Emperor. We spent centuries mapping your territories, contacting resistance movements, and preparing for this day. Every species you conquered is now being given the means to fight back. Emperor Xenfold's advisors rushed into the throne room with increasingly desperate reports. The Centaurian Liberation Army, supported by human stealth ships, had reclaimed their homeworld in less than an hour. The Pleiades Confederation, armed with human quantum weapons, had destroyed the imperial shipyards that had been their prison for centuries. This is impossible, Xenfold roared. Our empire has stood for 1,000 years. We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. No, Santos corrected. You had what you thought was the most advanced technology. While you stagnated, believing in your own superiority, humanity pushed the boundaries of science. We developed technologies based on principles you never even theorized. In orbit around Valdor Prime, space itself began to ripple. Massive human vessels phased into normal space, their obsidian hulls absorbing all light. They had been there all along, watching, waiting. Your fleet commanders are being shown the truth about your empire, Santos continued. The corruption, the slavery, the genocides you've hidden. Many are already standing down, unwilling to defend such atrocities. Lieutenant Chen's voice came through on a priority channel. Admiral, Phase 3 is proceeding ahead of schedule. 87% of conquered worlds have successfully overthrown their Valdorian overlords. Our quantum entanglement network is allowing resistance forces to coordinate their attacks with unprecedented precision. The Emperor watched as his mighty empire crumbled. Through quantum communications, every being in Valdorian space could now see the truth. The carefully maintained propaganda about imperial superiority shattered as images of liberation spread at FTL speeds. You still have a choice, Santos offered. Surrender now, end the subjugation of other species, and we can work together to build something better. Continue to resist, and we will dismantle your empire piece by piece. On 1,000 worlds, former slaves and subjugated species rose up against their oppressors. Human ships provided them with weapons that could bypass Valdorian defenses, communications that couldn't be blocked, and shields that made retaliation impossible. The Empire had fought humanity primitive, only to discover they had been outmaneuvered before the first shot was fired. Every human ship carried quantum computers that could process more information than the entire Valdorian military network. Their weapons operated on principles that made conventional defenses meaningless. Admiral, Lieutenant Chen reported, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the Imperial Palace. They appear to be preparing to use their planetary defense system. Santos nodded. As expected. Emperor, I should warn you. We've already quantum-locked your weapon systems. You'll find they no longer respond to your commands. Emperor Xenthal pressed his command codes frantically, but nothing responded. In a single day, his invincible empire had been revealed as a paper tiger before humanity's true power. You have 1 hour to signal your surrender, Santos concluded. After that, we begin dismantling your remaining power structures. Remember, this isn't about revenge. It's about freedom. The choice of how this ends remains yours. The Emperor stared at the hologram as it faded, his world crumbling around him. In the space of a few hours, humanity had done what no species had managed in 1,000 years. They had brought the mighty Valdorian Empire to its knees, not through destruction, but through careful planning and technological superiority that bordered on the miraculous. The counterstrike was complete, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the 1-hour deadline approached, Emperor Xenthal struggled with a decision that would reshape galactic history. The mighty Valdorian Palace, once a symbol of unquestionable power, now felt like a crystalline cage. Outside, human ships hung in the sky like obsidian stars, their very presence defying everything the Empire had believed about technological superiority. My Emperor, his chief advisor whispered, our remaining fleet commanders report that their crews are deserting. The humans are broadcasting historical records, showing the true history of our conquests. Our own people are turning against us. Through quantum-enabled broadcasts, every being in Valdorian space was witnessing the Empire's carefully hidden atrocities. Centuries of propaganda crumbled before incontrovertible evidence. The worst revelation wasn't the brutality of their conquests. It was learning that the Empire's supposed technological superiority had been built on stolen innovations from conquered races, innovations they had then suppressed to maintain control. Admiral Santos's voice echoed through the palace again. Your time is almost up, Emperor. But before you decide, there's something you should see. The palace's grand hall filled with holographic displays showing scenes from across the former empire. On Centauri Prime, human ships were helping restore ancient technologies the Valdorians had banned. In the Pleiades sector, quantum engineering was already repairing environments damaged by imperial mining operations. Former slave worlds were being given access to medical technology centuries ahead of anything the Empire possessed. This is who we are, Santos continued. Earth could have developed weapons of unimaginable destruction. Instead, we created technologies to preserve life, to heal, to build. Your Empire's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating our military capability. It was underestimating our humanity. Lieutenant Chen's voice came through on all channels. Admiral, the quantum scans are complete. We've located all hidden Imperial weapons facilities, including the forbidden tech vaults on Valder's moons. The Emperor's scales paled further. Those vaults contain technologies deemed too dangerous to use, stolen from conquered civilizations, and locked away to prevent them from being used against the Empire. He'd thought them completely hidden. Yes, Emperor, Santos confirmed, reading his reaction. We know about the bioweapons, the planetary destroyers, the consciousness transfer devices. We've known for decades. Did you really think we'd launch this operation without accounting for everything? Throughout the palace, quantum fields flickered as human operators transported away the most dangerous artifacts and weapons. The Empire's last resort options vanished in flashes of blue light. Listen carefully. Santos' tone grew firmer. In the past 6 hours, 98% of your empire has fallen. Not through destruction, but through revelation. Your own citizens are demanding change. But this isn't about revenge. It's about transformation. The holographic displays shifted to show something new. A gathering of representatives from formerly conquered worlds, meeting aboard a massive human vessel. Former slaves sat alongside their liberators, planning the future of galactic society. We're offering you a choice, Santos continued. Not just surrender, but redemption. The Valdorian people have much to offer the galaxy. Your achievements in crystalline computing, your advances in stellar engineering, these could benefit everyone if shared freely. Emperor Xenthal watched as more displays appeared, showing the impossible. Valdorian scientists working alongside their former enemies, their combined knowledge already producing innovations neither could have achieved alone. Your empire is finished, Santos stated plainly, but your civilization doesn't have to end. Join us in building something better. A galactic coalition where knowledge is shared, where advancement comes through cooperation rather than conquest. Lieutenant Chen's voice returned. Admiral, we're detecting quantum fluctuations in the Imperial defense grid. They're attempting to activate the Doomsday protocols. No, Santos replied calmly. They're not. Those systems were quantum locked the moment we arrived. Emperor, your weapons will never work again. The only power you have left is the power to choose a better path. The Emperor looked out at his capital city, where crowds had gathered in the streets. They weren't calling for resistance. They were demanding change. His own people, seeing the truth for the first time, wanted an end to the Empire's ways. How? He finally asked, his voice heavy with defeat. How did you achieve all this? Because we learned from history, Santos answered. Earth's past was full of empires like yours, built on conquest and suppression. We spent centuries ensuring we wouldn't repeat those mistakes when we reached the stars. Technology without wisdom is just another form of violence. The quantum displays showed more scenes of transformation. Former imperial worlds beginning their healing, ancient cultures resurging from the ashes of oppression, and everywhere, human ships providing aid rather than destruction. The Emperor rose from his throne, his decision made. The Empire had fallen, not to superior weapons, but to superior values. As he prepared to surrender, he realized that humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating the Valdorians. It was showing them a better way to exist among the stars. The Empire's fall was complete, but perhaps its end would mark the beginning of something far greater. 1 year after the fall of the Valdorian Empire, Admiral Elena Santos stood in the newly constructed Chamber of Cooperation on Earth. The vast hall, built with a combination of human quantum architecture and Valdorian crystal technology, hosted representatives from over 1,000 worlds. Through quantum projectors, countless others participated virtually, their holographic forms indistinguishable from physical presence. Look at what we've built together, Lieutenant Chen, now Ambassador Chen, said as she approached. Who would have thought the galaxy's most feared empire would transform into its greatest force for progress? Santos watched as former Emperor Xenthal, now the Valdorian representative to the Galactic Coalition, engaged in animated discussion with scientists from worlds his people had once enslaved. His scales shimmered with enthusiasm as they shared discoveries that would have been impossible under the old regime. "We didn't just defeat an empire," Santos replied. "We proved there was a better way." The achievements of the past year had exceeded even humanity's most optimistic projections. The combination of Earth's quantum science with the recovered technologies of formerly suppressed civilizations had accelerated progress across all fields. Worlds once stripped for resources were being restored using environmental reconstruction techniques. Former slave species were rediscovering their ancient heritage while contributing their unique perspectives to galactic society. "Admiral," a quantum communication chimed in her neural link. "The Centaurian-Valdorian Joint Research Team has successfully tested their first quantum probability drive. They're requesting your presence for the official announcement." This was perhaps the most significant change. Former enemies working together, combining their knowledge to push the boundaries of science. The Valdorians' expertise in crystalline computing, merged with human quantum technology and Centaurian energy manipulation, was opening doors to discoveries that would have been impossible for any one species alone. "Remember when they thought we were primitive?" Chen smiled, watching a group of young Valdorians eagerly learning Earth history. "Now they're sending their brightest minds to study at our universities." Santos nodded. "Because we showed them that true strength isn't about dominance. It's about wisdom. About knowing when to hide your power, and more importantly, how to use it responsibly when revealed." The massive quantum displays showed scenes from across the galaxy. Former imperial worlds flourishing under self-governance, new trade routes established through human quantum gate technology, and perhaps most importantly, joint scientific missions exploring the unknown regions of space together. "There are still challenges," Chen noted, gesturing to a display showing ongoing negotiations with some of the more resistant former imperial colonies. "Not everyone embraces change easily. That's why we're not forcing anyone," Santos replied. "The coalition is voluntary. We provide aid, support, and protection to those who want it. The rest will join when they're ready." In the center of the chamber, a new hologram appeared, a real-time representation of the known galaxy. Points of light showed the quantum gate network expanding, connecting worlds that had once been isolated under imperial rule. Ships of all species moved freely through these passages, carrying not weapons of war, but knowledge, culture, and hope. "Admiral," former Emperor Xenthal approached, his scales now the bright blue of contentment rather than the royal purple of imperialism. "The medical research teams have done it. By combining our crystalline biotechnology with Earth's quantum healing methods, we found a cure for the Rigelian plague. A disease we created as a weapon will now be eradicated by our cooperation." Santos smiled. This was humanity's true victory, not the defeat of an empire, but the transformation of a civilization from conquerors to healers. "How does it feel?" she asked. "To build rather than destroy." "Like awakening from a long darkness," Xenthal replied. "My people thought power came from forcing others to submit. You showed us that true power lies in helping others rise." The chamber grew quiet as the main quantum display activated, showing a new milestone. The first joint expedition beyond the galaxy's edge, crewed by members of 20 different species, including humans and Valdorians. Their mission wasn't conquest or exploitation, but exploration and discovery. "This is why we waited," Santos said softly. "Why we watched and prepared for centuries. Not just to defend ourselves, but to be ready for this moment, when we could help guide the galaxy towards something better." Ambassador Chen checked her quantum feed. "The coalition membership applications have passed 1,000 worlds. More join every day as they see what we're building together." Santos looked out at the gathered representatives, former enemies becoming allies, old wounds healing through cooperation, new discoveries being shared freely. Humanity had emerged not as conquerors or saviors, but as catalysts for change, proving that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't advanced technology or military might, but the simple choice to use power wisely. "We warned them," she said with a slight smile. But I'm glad they didn't listen. Sometimes the best victories aren't the ones you plan for, but the ones that show you a better path forward. As the galactic representatives continued their work, Earth's orbital defense platforms remained vigilant, their quantum fields ready. But they weren't just weapons anymore. They were reminders of a lesson learned. True strength lies not in the power you possess, but in how you choose to use it. The dawn of a new era had truly begun, and it was more magnificent than anyone could have imagined.